Hello, everyone, and welcome to Right in Front of My Face, the podcast that talks about real things happening right in front of us. I am your host, Shannon Hull, and I am so excited about episode number 3 for a variety of reasons. Thank you so much, first off, to everyone who has listened, downloaded, subscribed. Getting past the 500 download hump just felt really big to me when this started back in August, when I started developing the idea for this podcast. I truly never thought that it would get any reach. And so the fact that people are responding and sharing and listening means the world to me. So on this week after Thanksgiving, I find myself being unbelievably grateful for the opportunity to interview these incredible people who have been willing to share themselves on this podcast. Episode number 3 is extremely special to me. Erica is one of the reasons why I decided to start this podcast. And I wanted to take a little bit more time introducing the episode than I have with previous episodes, because I wanted to give some background about why I decided to start a podcast. A couple of years ago, I had joined a writing class. The subject of the class was kids literature. It was a wonderful teacher through University of Washington Extension that taught this fantastic class on how to write kids' books. And I had worked on a couple of manuscripts. The class is in quarters. So at the third quarter, our last class, our teacher invited us to share any piece of writing that we wanted, since we were all kind of tired of our manuscripts. And that week happened to be the same week that Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade committed suicide. Those two events happening so close together, for some reason, really, really deeply affected me. And I know why it did, because I had a pretty crippling case of postpartum anxiety, and Kate Spade's story just really touched me and made me so sad, because I could really relate to that feeling of being scared and alone. And I just ached for everyone involved in that scenario. So I wrote about it. When I presented this little essay I'd written to my writing class, it was emotional for a lot of women, because so many of the women in my writing group had experienced the same thing that I have and had never, ever talked about it. The response was so strong that one of my peers helped me get published in the Seattle Times, and just with a 700-word op-ed. The ripple effect of that op-ed, which felt so naked at the time, sharing this truth that I really hadn't shared with many people, the ripple effect of sharing this side of myself was pretty profound. I heard from people I hadn't heard from in years. I heard people who had read my piece and decided to make a doctor appointment. It impacted a few people in a big way. And it was the first time that I really saw in real life how making yourself vulnerable can have a positive effect, even if you feel really naked at the time. So fast forward a year later, we did another free write for the second year of my writing class, and I wrote another essay that had a profound effect. And the people in my class encouraged me to maybe do something with that piece of my voice rather than the kids lit that we had been focusing on. So from there, I thought that I would start a blog and went down that process. And another one of my friends, like an angel, said, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And I hadn't. So I had started kicking around the idea at the end of the summer when I found myself with my acquaintance, Erica. Erica and I have known each other for a couple years, very peripherally. And we were at a park this summer, and she and I were chatting, and she kept referring to her spouse as her sweetheart. My sweetheart this, and I had noticed it enough in conversation that I finally asked her, I said, Erica, I wish that I felt that giddy about my husband to call him my sweetheart. Like, that's awesome. You use that term. Tell me about that. And, she just looked at me and she took a breath and she said, well, it's complicated. She asked me if I wanted to hear, and I said, yes. And she then proceeded to tell me the experience that she is going to share with you also today about how her partner of 15 years reassigned gender. The conversation that we had this summer was so kind and so open and so vulnerable and honest that it truly inspired me to want to start a discourse in the public that led with kindness and compassion. Erica's willingness to answer my questions about this topic that is so far from anything that I know really moved me. And her willingness to educate, her willingness to talk, her willingness to say, yeah, it's all really confusing, is part of the reason why I wanted to make these stories public. In this age of Twitter, in this age of Instagram, where we're all filtered, where discussions can get really mean really fast, it felt so mind-blowing to have a conversation about a really big, really layered, really confusing topic with this beautiful spirit of, tell me about this thing that I don't understand. So here we are at episode 3. And one thing that I have noticed, despite all of the differences in all of these stories, is that the one underlying theme is that these are all love stories. Whether it is the love of a parent accepting a son who's come out, whether it's the love of a husband and wife who have decided to rebuild their marriage, or whether it is the love of one partner accepting another partner completely as they are at this moment, these are all love stories. As we go into this holiday season, which can be a painful time for a lot of us, there's a lot of loneliness associated. It's not all just white Christmas and beautiful memories. I would like to go into this season remembering that the underlying theme of most people around us is figuring out how to love each other where we are right now. Erica is such a beautiful example of acceptance, of selflessness, of grace, of compassion. I think we all have a lot to learn from this story. Again, I want to touch on this issue because this is something that's very foreign to me, and Erica and I tried to treat it with the utmost sensitivity and respect. The trans community is not new, but this issue has come to the forefront as we are talking about it more and more. And I am so happy that she took the time to educate me and how she did. The other thing for me that I'm realizing as I have an 8-year-old son is that these conversations are conversations that our kids are going to be having. This is the reality they're growing up in. And so having my eyes opened to this truth that other people are walking around with has been very helpful in that regard as well. Once again, I want to say thank you so much for listening. And I do want to say that this episode doesn't contain profanity, maybe a little, but it does contain conversations about body parts, about surgeries. There are some sexual situations. So please keep that in mind as you listen. Other than that, please keep an open mind and an open heart as you listen to Erica's story. So here she is. Today we are welcoming to my amazing home studio, my friend Erica.
Hi.
And Erica and I have known each other for about a year or two.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And this is somebody who literally has been right in front of my face every single day, have crossed my path. I always thought she was a ray of sunshine. She's got rainbow hair all the time, fun eyeliner wings, and just is overall funky. And it wasn't until about a year into knowing her that Erica opened up to me and shared a story about her life that I felt at the time was just extremely profound. And part of the inspiration for starting this podcast, actually, because the way that we were able to talk about this particular subject regarding marriage was very beautiful because it's something that I don't know a lot about. And I asked Erica to come on, and she was brave enough to come on and be vulnerable and share her story about marriage and how her spouse is transitioning genders. Mm-hmm. So Erica, thank you so much for coming on.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
This is a topic I feel like that perhaps is not new, but is new to general pop conversation.
Totally.
Maybe.
It's kind of getting mainstreamed, I think, right now.
Yeah,
it feels like that.
It is. And I have so much to learn about this topic. So I will start off by saying that as a white, cis, heterosexual woman who identifies as a woman, my lens is clearly very narrow, right? Like I see the world through a very like traditional way that's accepted generally. And so I am so interested to hear about your journey, finding a partner, about what that was like, and about your subsequent journey. So I had my cousin Joe on. He was the initial episode, and he talked to me about his experience coming out as a gay man. Here we have a gay woman, which I'm so happy to have your opinion and point of view. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about your journey and how you met your spouse?
Okay. Well, let's see. I've been aware that I was a lesbian probably for about 23 years now. I was about 17. And I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. And it was like, okay,
something different. Yeah.
It was very evident then. Then, speeding up into my young adulthood, I met my sweetheart when I was about 24. And he was about 19 at the time.
And at that time, both female, correct?
Yes. At that time, we were a happy lesbian couple. Also at that time, I think because of being under the gay umbrella, I knew about people who were trans. And the conversation was like, I'm a lesbian and, I love women. So just so you know, I don't think that in particular, like basically that being transitioning into the male body,
right,
would really be my preference. It's not something that I'm into.
So that's really something that you did talk about through your relationship.
Well, we talked about it in the beginning, and I think what happened.
So I feel like you're pretty woke for.
Thanks.
but even back then, because it's interesting. That's amazing that was part of your conversation so young.
Yeah. Well, he's always been really male presenting, like never very feminine. I think one time he put on one of my dresses to be funny, and it did look funny. So
it worked.
It was hilarious. And it was clear to me, that he's not very feminine. However, he's very androgynous at the time. Like still wearing clothes that weren't necessarily for women, but just not very masculine presenting, like not butch,
right?
Like people call it hard butch. He was like what we call soft butch, which is like still some like earrings, maybe a feminine hairdo in the way of like, curly or just not, you wouldn't lump him in with your husband.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
At that time.
Right.
So in some degree, I was like, okay, well, this shouldn't be too shocking.
Right.
He's never been girly, so to speak.
So how long are you together?
We, come December, we'll have been together for 17 years. And he has been in transition for just a year, just recently.
So you are together for this amount of time and then you get married.
Yeah.
Which is something you fought for.
Yeah. We had a commitment ceremony about 11 years ago. I'm really trying to be up on my dates. I don't want to be that partner that's like, I don't know our anniversary.
Yeah, I know. That's tricky. I'm putting you on the spot for sure.
But then we did a lot of campaigning for marriage equality when we lived in Maine, and, phone calls, even like knocking on houses to talk to people about it, just to get it passed. So I really fought very hard, to make him my wife. That sounds like a really weird sentence.
No,
to make him my wife.
Absolutely.
And so then we got legally married, and I think it was 2011. I can't remember when it came out that everybody could get married. Maybe I'm a bad gay for not.
I don't think you're.
knowing
I
that
don't think you're a
Hallmark
bad
date.
gay. I'm a bad heterosexual person because I don't remember the date either.
We got married and then we moved out here, out to Seattle. I really wanted to be back here. The culture is just really what I was looking for. We lived in a very small town. So I think that also for him, being in that small town, he would never be able to transition.
Sure.
You know, all of his family, people he grew up with.
This whole time you get married, you have your commitment ceremony, you go through equality, and he still doesn't know, you're happy.
Yeah.
Right?
I think
like you're a lesbian couple. It's all good. You moved to Seattle. It's all good.
Yep. Yeah. Also, one thing that played a really big part in all of this was that he got sober. And I think, you know, from his discovery in this new sober life, he realized that a good part of the reason why he was drinking was because he was denying his identity.
And it's true.
He knew he would never be able to be that, and it caused him pain. And so it just added to all the reasons why to drink. And then, you know, as he got sober, he was like, oh man, this is right in my face. I'm actually a dude. You know, I'm a man. And I don't think I can go any further in this life.
And so you have been a supportive partner through his addiction.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You know, really stood by your partner, helped. How does the conversation even come up? Right? Because he's sober for how long before this revelation hits?
Well, just like maybe 8 months. And thank you for that, reminding me of that time. It seemed like, you know, once he started to get sober, you know, the beginning of that is still kind of rough. You know, anybody going through that, that shift in their life, it's rough, irregardless of,
sure,
you know, your identity changes. And then we had like 3 months of bliss, at least for me.
Yeah.
You know, it was
because here's this person finally achieving this
you're
thing.
sober. I'm happy. Life's getting into like what I felt it should be. And little did I know that he was coming to grips with this, like, I'm actually a man. So then after that 3 month of awesome, you know.
That's such an interesting, like I'm sitting here and I get the vision of like paths just like diverging.
Yes.
Totally unknowingly, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes. And then, you know, it's like those first, you know, 15, 16 years, you know, I was like, it's okay. I know he's a beautiful person. And, you know, we'll get through this sometime when he's ready to be sober, you know?
Right. Which I mean, as someone who has been with a partner for, gosh, we've been together almost 20 years now,
mm-hmm.
just being that supportive and willing to say, like, we will get through this. Like, that is love.
Yeah. We definitely had some times where we were like, you know, when I had hit my limit.
Right.
You know, we were definitely tested many times.
For sure. As we all are, regardless of
mm-hmm.
orientation.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we had that beautiful 3 months. and then,
for you.
and then he started to say, you know, I think that I'm at least non-binary. I want to use they, them. But I think that's it. That's what he says. I think that's it. And I was like, okay, you know, just thinking in my head, okay, you're
because
saying
you
that,
know
but
this
I don't
person,
know.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you know this person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then, so that was kind of tricky. I really had a hard time using they, them. I think because it really is only about our language, you know, being they, them as multiple people. But somebody said I've been going to a trans support group now, that they, them, if we can just think of it like we have many sides to us. And so why not continue to use that? It's still challenging for me, but we have to do it. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are non-binary and we have to accept it.
Absolutely.
You know, we can't say, no, I'm not going to use that.
And it is just that, like, that's a really interesting way to frame it, where like everybody has multiple dimensions.
Right. I mean, I'm a very, feminine presenting woman, however, there are sides of me like that you could say are masculine, like I really love working with tools, So, I mean, but that's like how our society has decided to construct female and male roles.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can break that down, it wouldn't even be like that. I could still be a they, them person in that mindset, in that construct of like tools are for everybody,
right?
Not just men.
Right.
Just, as an example of all of that. Later on, like a month after that, I mean, that happened, I think it was like early September.
Okay.
When he told me they, them. Then in like the beginning of October, he said, actually, I want to go by he, him.
So is he going to support groups trying to figure this out also? Or is this like something that he just knows and is like needing that time to really reflect on it and accept it himself, do you think?
Well, I think it helped that he has a lot of coworkers who are trans men, and his sponsor was a trans man. So it just seemed like around him, he could see it.
Right.
And so I think he just became aware that he was identifying with these people. So now, we go to Ingersoll is it's a gender center here in Seattle. And they have support groups there for trans people. And also I go on the first of the month because they have like breakout groups for people who are significant others, friends, and family. They call it a sofa, and I really don't like that. But, I don't want to ever refer to myself as a sofa.
No.
Just big and squishy.
You're not identifying as a sofa at
I'm going
this point.
the opposite of big and squishy.
So take me back, because I really want to get this feeling from you. How do you feel when he tells you this?
Oh, wow.
Like, how do you feel? Because I'm picturing myself having this conversation with my husband of 15 years, right? It's not dissimilar. Take me to that moment and like, what are you feeling?
Well, when he said they, them, I was like, oh gosh, here we go, and then when the he, him came, I knew that everything else was going to start happening.
Right.
He also wanted to start using testosterone hormone therapy, and he wanted to have top surgery, basically like double mastectomy.
Okay.
And I had a little bit of a hard time because, I'm a lesbian.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, wow, we already talked about this. And I felt a little bit, fooled, bamboozled.
Yeah. I mean,
tricked.
And that's kind of what I come back to is like, I think in all marriage therapy, you think of betrayals, right? Little ones, big ones, like it's the whole Gottman thing of like their little teeny betrayals. And I am wondering if that's how you felt. Like, is this a little betrayal of trust, or is this like how does that feel?
Well, it was tricky because like I said, he was never very feminine presenting, so it was kind of like, it felt almost natural for him to be going through that. But I basically wasn't getting what I wanted anymore.
Right.
Or
necessarily what you signed up for.
Yes.
Especially since it sounds like you had the conversation.
Right.
Like, this is kind of not what I'm into.
Right. Exactly. But I mean, as we had already been together for so long, and I've already, worked through a lot of issues with him, especially because of, the drinking, just felt like, okay, well, I love this person, and I didn't see any changes happening, for our relationships. So, like drastic changes, like separation. Although I did feel it a couple times, I thought, is this really something I can handle?
Right.
Am I, what about my identity? How does that shift? It's like when I told my sisters about it, They were like, wait, so you're going to be straight now? And, I got so angry.
This is like where, from me looking from the outside, this is where this does get a little bit confusing. And I'm on the outside of it to where, as a heterosexual, if my husband tells me I have been living a lie and this is my truth, that is an identity shift for you, because a part of your identity is the construct of this relationship you've been in.
Right.
Right?
Right. Well, and also with that, just because I'm a very feminine presenting woman, almost all of my life, I've felt the need to display in some way that I'm a lesbian. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
It does, actually. I've never thought about it that way before.
For him to start transitioning kind of took that, I know this sounds terrible, that accessory, away from me. Because now he's going to
really
look
interesting,
more like a man, and I'm going to look even more like a heterosexual woman.
Which is not
right
how you identify.
Exactly. So yeah, that was really challenging. I got mad about, just I'm a lesbian and I just want to continue to live my life that way. I will never identify as a heterosexual woman. It's just not who I am. Right now, how I'm seeing myself is as a lesbian in a queer relationship, which, I just don't want to have to talk like to every single person about my relationship that way,
Right. Or at all.
It really shouldn't matter,
No.
But it does matter to me though. It's so tricky, how we want to be
that's
seen.
The word. It's very tricky. Through this whole process, you remain supportive.
Yes.
And at any point, once the actual transition starts happening, because I feel like it's one of those things where you're like, okay, like let's stand by this. Let's see how it goes. What happens with the actual hormones, are you still cool with it? Are you together? Take me through that.
Well, wow. So I'm trying to think about it all. I was a little nervous at first about the hormone therapy, just because when he wasn't sober, when he was drinking, he had really bad anger issues. And I was like, oh, great. Now you're going to get all, roided out. And I wasn't looking forward to that. And then I started reading up on all the other things that can happen. Hair loss, which also I wasn't really into that. And the hair growth, I knew that was going to happen. And the change in his voice, which I didn't think would affect me in a way that it has. Because I thought, well, he's already got kind of a deep voice. That won't really bother me that much. But then I heard it and it felt really bizarre. Here you have this voice that you've heard for over a decade, and to hear it change. I was like, oh, that's weird. And then when he wanted to get top surgery, I was supportive. I knew that he didn't like it. However, again, I'm a lesbian. I love boobs.
Yeah.
I love the female form.
Yeah.
And, the night before the surgery, I was just, crying quietly, because I didn't want him to feel bad about my feelings in regards to what he needed to happen.
Which again, that is true love and friendship. It seems like when I hear you talk about it, there's a depth of character you're showing where you are really deeply caring for this other person in such a selfless way.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
Yeah. Really, I don't know if push came to shove, if I would be able to take myself out of it in the way that you've just described. You don't want to burden him with the way you feel about what's happening.
Right.
That's pretty profound, Erica.
Thanks. Looking back, I wish that we had maybe had a little more ceremony in regards to that, though. The day of the surgery, we were both so anxious.
Yeah.
You
Scary.
know, that I didn't get to have any, I know this sounds really crazy, but I didn't get to have any more moments with his breast.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, it all became very surgical then, you know, hands off, you know, I got one last little boob grab before he went in. Exactly.
Goodbye, girls. I love you.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so that was pretty sad. It was a really sad day for me. I remember going to go get a coffee and the Starbucks lady was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And she could see my face.
Right.
And I was like, "That's fine. Listen, just put it out there." You know, I said, I'm okay. I'm just waiting for my partner. He's having top surgery today. And, you know, I'm feeling mournful.
Right.
And this barista is like, "Congratulations. That's great." And I was like, "Thanks." You know,
Thank you. Thank
in
you
my
for
head,
your,
I want to be like, "Get out of my face."
thanks for your acceptance.
Yeah. And, you know, and I'm glad about that. I'm glad that exists out there. At that moment, I just really was not open to that.
Not the best thing to hear.
Yeah. And then, you know, later on, as things progressed, especially with the testosterone, his leg hair started to come in more. And he was super psyched. And I feel really bad for him because, you know, I come home from work. He wants to show me this cool new thing. He's super excited, shows me his leg hair. And I'm like, ugh. And it wasn't the reaction he wanted.
But it's like a visceral reaction, right?
I could not help it. I just couldn't help it. And he could see it on my face and it bummed him out. It was like that exact reaction that I was keeping, you know, trying to guard him from the night before the surgery. You know, I didn't want him to feel that. You know, I want him to know that I support him, you know, and that I'm here for him. And, you know, because I love him. I just had to say to him, maybe some of these wins that you're having, you should share with your trans dudes first.
Yeah.
You know,
and is he pretty sensitive at this point about what you are going through? Like, would you say you are experiencing reciprocal sensitivity for the grief and loss of your wife?
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah.
He has a hard time thinking about like, why is it so hard for me? You know, what's the big deal?
Like, you should be accepting my truth and this is just it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've had to have conversations. Like when this whole thing started, we discussed having an open relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like neither one of us wanted to dissolve the relationship we had, but he understood like, hey, if you feel like you're not getting what you need, I don't want you to deny yourself, you know? And that felt really weird.
Right, because you've committed.
Yeah. And plus, I mean, it's just not something that we've learned as a society, which like that's a whole nother box to open, you know?
That is like a whole,
you know, a polyamorous relationships.
That's
and
another,
things like that.
That's another real mind bender.
Oh man. So I was like, listen, I just don't want to even go there right now.
Yeah.
You know,
this is enough. And are you living together at this point? Are you separate?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. We did take some time apart. Cause he's in a recovery program, and I'm also in a recovery program for
Which
people.
Is really awesome that you're taking care of yourselves. But will you share what it is so people know?
I go to Al-Anon, which basically is for the people who are in relationships with alcoholics. Mm-hmm. You know, it doesn't have to just be I'm married to one. It could be like a friend or a coworker, or family member, and we have to do these steps. Right. Not everybody knows, but the 12 steps.
Right.
And we're both doing this one particularly hard step 4, where you take a moral inventory. Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
Like even just those 2 words together.
Like, I just got my heart started beating a little fast.
So we have to write these lists of all the people we resent. And of course he's on my list. You know, we have resentments towards almost everyone we've come in contact with.
Sure.
or have built a relationship with. And so here we are dealing with transition, recently healed from top surgery. We're both doing this very brutal work. And it was just like my house was just filled with thick, dark air that was resentment. So we finally had this very good conversation where it just was like, let's find a place for you to take some space, for us to have space, because I don't know that we're going to keep this relationship if we have to keep trudging through this.
Right.
And so he stayed with a friend. We've been calling it the summer sabbatical because he was gone for basically the summer living at a friend's house.
Yeah.
And it was really helpful for both of us. And I think it really helped me. I put the focus on myself, taking care of myself so that I wasn't quite fixated on his sobriety, his transition, anything to do with him. Because a lot of
this is about what's going on with him.
Oh, yeah.
And you being an incredible partner.
Thanks.
And protecting him from however you're actually feeling.
Oh, yes. Like, here's an example of that. We like to go out to this Mexican restaurant and they know us there.
Yeah.
And there are all these Mexican dudes that work there. And they have always been like, oh, ladies, right? And so just recently, over the past couple of months, when we go there, I'll speak up and say, oh, he'll have this. Oh, he's doing this. Or I don't think that's what he wants. And now all of the waiters have picked up on that and have now started calling him. Because in the past, he still wasn't very presenting masculinely, and so they were continuing to call him lady when he was already saying, I'm a he, him. So that was hard to kind of be hard.
I mean, I keep coming back to, something that we've talked about it's so deep, but it really challenges did you marry the gender? Or did you marry the person?
For sure. Yeah. I think about it a lot because it's especially now, I've definitely seen myself have certain moments of missing his breasts.
Yeah. But sexual attraction is a piece of that puzzle. Regardless of how, whatever percentage piece of your pie chart it is, but it is a piece of it.
Yes. Yes. Intimacy has changed, in that respect. And it's almost like phantom limb in a way.
Interesting.
And that's challenging. That's just been recently that issue has kind of come up. So, I don't even know how to really communicate that part yet, except that phantom limb part. But I'm definitely married to the individual. So I love him.
I'm just asking you to explain for my own edification, because when he goes through the transition, how does he identify his orientation now? Because does that change? Does it have a name? And I'm just asking this for my
where he
own education.
Where he is in his transition?
Yeah, where he is in his transition, but he transitions to men. He's still attracted to women.
Right. Oh, is he a hetero man?
Is he a hetero man? What is that? Does it have a definition? Does it need one? I'm just purely curious.
Well, it's, I don't know. One, I'm not foremost on this. I'm not I'm not a professional on this. However, that brings up another fear that I've had. He sees himself as a trans man who's attracted to women.
Okay.
However, what I've seen is a lot of trans men. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. The percentage of trans men that I have met are attracted to men. I don't know if that has something to do with testosterone.
And is that something that's changed after transition?
I've seen some people, for example, I know of another person who is trans. First, he was dating women. So before his transition as a woman, he was dating women.
Okay.
So he was a lesbian. Then he transitioned and now he dates gay men.
It's
very complex.
It's very complex.
I think that I don't know the trans male mind. I don't know it.
Right.
But what I see is maybe there is an attraction to, oh, you have that. I want that. I want to be close to that. I want that hairy chest on my own, like on my own body. So now I'm going to be next to that. I don't know. I can't say what happens for every person, but I did start to feel like, oh crap, is my sweetheart going to become attracted to men?
After all of this.
Right. That was my number one fear. Not, me having a girlfriend and being married. That didn't scare me as much as thinking that he would not be attracted to me.
Interesting.
Like that he would want something more masculine.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Because I don't know if that's just as a woman. Like I think about that all the time.
Right.
You want your partner to be attracted to you.
Absolutely. And
it's a real big deal.
Yeah. Right after his top surgery, that was a real point of contention in our house because he kept asking me, are you attracted to me? You're still attracted to me.
So you're both feeling that way too. That's so vulnerable.
It's interesting how it's happening. And one thing I've been thinking about lately is like, trying to find a way to have my hetero female friends understand it a little bit more because, your husband is male presenting.
Yeah.
So if he decided that he was really a woman, that would be really shocking.
Yes.
Right. But here I had this person who was never female presenting tell me he wanted to be a man. So I was thinking about it. How can I do that? Well, I was thinking about religion. Okay. You've been in this, let's just say, a Jewish family household,
sure.
Right? Yeah. Everybody's Jewish. But then suddenly this person that you're married to starts to kind of not go to church or synagogue or whatever, and starts to kind of back away from that. And now he's saying, you know what? I think I might actually be Buddhist, let's just say.
Yep.
But I think you can be Buddhist and be every religion. So let's say Catholic. Sorry.
Go to the extreme.
I didn't mean to go from one extreme to another because it really is.
Yeah.
It's pretty extreme. So, you love that person, irregardless of them identifying as, now I'm going to be a Catholic, right?
Right.
You find a way to make things work. They're very different. How do you make that work?
And can you change your own?
You think about
your own attitudes, your own preconceived notions, your own everything. I think it's really fascinating. And I think it also challenges my view of what marriage is.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Because, well, it's funny you say this. At a meeting the other day, I was really upset and I was talking about, intimacy and do long-term relationships have a wax and wane, where like you're super hot, you're not super hot, then you're super hot again. And, is that what's happening or is it this other thing in my relationship right now?
Yeah. That's a mind blower too. Like, and my only experience is in my own heterosexual relationship, but it seems like most relationships do go through, if it's not an attraction, wax and wane, it's like just a natural ebb and flow of things get hard and then they get easier and then they get hard and they get easier. And
Yeah.
But then you add this other
component. Yeah.
Component, and it just makes it 1,000 times harder.
Which was interesting. When he was drinking, I really became unattracted, because I was like, the behavior is just like uncool.
Yeah. And you still stuck it out though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like that's true commitment, Arka.
I laughed so hard because I thought, I spent all these years struggling through that, and then this happens. Is this what's going to make this relationship dissolve? But
and then is there a part of you that's like a little pissed?
Oh yeah. There's times where I'm just like, oh, when am I not going to be working to be in this relationship?
Right.
And I'm not sure, like, do other relationships have to struggle like that so much? I mean, I'm guessing, yeah, to some degree.
They're just different struggles.
Just a different perspective.
I think it's just different. It's just different struggles.
Yeah.
So where are you today?
Oh, we're happy. Things are going good. He's at home. We go once a month together to Ingersoll. Sometimes he goes other times to get that support. That's been unbelievably helpful.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, it seems like there just are not very many people who can relate to this story, but I think as it gets out there and you kind of give it a voice, more and more people will relate and hopefully find these resources to help, because it is confusing.
I remember back when everybody was like, it was like the early 90s, and all of a sudden everybody was gay, and people were like, what the heck? This is a fad, don't be gay just because, it's the cool thing to do.
Yep.
But more and more people were coming out, and it seemed like, whoa, this is like a major movement that's happening. I think what happened there was people saw it being visible. Yeah. And they said, oh, hey, that's me. Now I can be free. I think that's what's happening right now with this, the gender identity situation. More and more people are coming out as either non-binary or trans. And so more and more people are going to be coming out.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think I'm just learning that I am so kind of sheltered in my own life where things seem so black and white, just because I knew that I was straight from a very early age. Like I knew that. And it's just not so black and white for a lot of people. And a lot of people can be attracted to both genders and identify as different. And that whole concept of not only fluidity, but gender identity is very confusing for those of us that don't experience life that way. But I think it is so important to understand that it's not so clear cut for all people.
Right. Yeah. Even myself, as, originally saying homosexual, lesbian.
Right.
Now I come to figure out, like, actually, because of my current situation, it would put me in the category of being pansexual, which is like a person who is attracted to anybody, man, woman, trans woman, because I'm in this relationship with a trans man.
It's really, really interesting. But also, I mean, again, I go back to like really just sitting here across from me thinking, wow, this person is so accepting and so loving. And it really has challenged me to think about my own marriage and how much more I could do to be accepting and loving just of silly habits that annoy me.
Oh, girl, no.
Like, oh my gosh, put your shoes away.
Oh,
it's like
that still happens in my house. I'm still like, can you please put the cap on the toothpaste? Or this is the way you fold the towels.
But I mean, even like those little things that are so irritating, like, can you truly accept your partner and support them through whatever life brings? Right? Like, I think it's just a general like lesson about marriage and commitment and supporting your partner.
Yes.
Because I view, like, I've heard your story and I just feel like being able to support somebody through such a giant life change is such an act of service and such a tangible act of commitment and love. I think it's kind of a lesson to us all and what we would really be willing to support our partners through.
Thank you. Yeah, one thing I feel with that in particular is, he has always shown me so much love. Even in the days when he was drinking, yes, there was some anger issues, but like it wasn't ever, abusive or anything like that. Right. He has always shown me so much love. If I was with someone else who didn't show me that much love, like, I don't know that I would be where I'm at right now, feeling these feelings and being so supportive.
Right.
It's just, he really treats me with a lot of care,
Well, I think it's, I appreciate so much being able to have this honest dialogue with you because I don't know much about all of these topics that we're talking about, and your honesty and willing to sit down and be like, let me share my story with you. It's not only like a huge teachable moment for me, but it also really truly is right in front of my face, learning about what love really looks like and how many forms that it takes. And like, let's just accept love wherever it is and whoever it's with, because this is what love is.
Right. When I first came out, that was my big argument with my parents. It was, it doesn't matter the form. I'm in love with this person. And so I had to remind myself of that, when this whole transition started happening. I was like, oh, hey.
Damn it, my words.
Go back to the foundation.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So.
Well, I commend you for being willing to talk about it. And I hope with everything in me that this story will find the people that it needs to find. Because I think we all have a lot to learn from you too. And if you wouldn't mind just plugging the resources, I will put them up on my website also.
Oh yeah.
For anybody that's looking for them. So you can find what Erica has talked about on my website, rightinfrontofmyface.net. I will also post it on Instagram at Right in Front of My Face, and we'll tweet about it at In Front of My Face on Twitter. But Erica, if you just say one more time.
Oh yeah. The Gender Center. It's Ingersoll Gender Center. It's right on Capitol Hill. And they have a ton of resources, not just for people who are trans themselves, but maybe who may be questioning, and people who support them, like myself. I know a lot of parents of people who are transitioning. They get nervous. They don't know what their kids are going to be up against.
Right.
And how to deal with that. And they have a great support system there for people to go and talk about it.
I'm thankful that Ingersoll exists and that you found it and are actively looking for support and probably would provide it to anybody that also needed it.
Oh yeah.
So thank you for being willing to talk about this trans adventure.
Yes. For sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And that is a wrap on episode 3. Erica, I cannot thank you enough for being willing to come on and educate all of us on the journey that you and your spouse have been on. If you know somebody who needs to hear this episode, please pass it on. If you know somebody who could benefit from any of the resources that Erica mentioned, as I said, they'll be linked on all my social media. And again, as we start this insane time of the year, my hope is that we can have more discourse and conversation like the one that Erica and I had, and fewer Twitter battles. My goal is to go into this new year with more compassion and more understanding that people are going through things that we cannot possibly comprehend. This week, if you think about it, take 1 second to ask another question, to dig a little deeper, to maybe refrain from having that judgment or leaving that snarky comment on somebody's Twitter. May we all be able to take a moment to really truly see what's right in front of our face.